All right. Hello, 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 hello. Um, Hi. Hope everyone's doing well today. Um, Peter and Paul are doing okay. Jason broke his leg, so I don't know. Johnny's always good. I love Johnny. Just a shout out, like Johnny is cool. He's a cool guy. Anyway, so what do I want to say? So first of all, so how was my day? Well, I didn't work, or I didn't work. Air quotes. I only have one hand, so it's kind of hard to do air quotes. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I didn't work. I kind of just chilled. I do like so. One thing about me, right? So we're sort of like thinking about stuff. I'm thinking now about how I actually feel bad about like sort of I tend to feel like when I don't do something, it feels like bad, right? And I wonder, like, I suppose that's me being me, but like I also wonder like if anybody else feels that way, right? There's a tendency, like, I think and I think, like, not to get too deep. I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm in a pretty good mood, but I hope, like, I can be derisive. I can be like, I don't know. Sometimes I can get grating. I know that I used to have a buddy who was he hated my puns. I don't know if they're puns. That's probably not even the right word, but he used to hate like how I would sort of like make a grading sort of joke, right? It's like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that, like, one thing about me is I have the tendency, like, I want to go. I always thought that I sort of inherited that from my mom. My mom is actually she is one of the she's a go getter. Like, she's like, we gotta go. And so I always thought, like, I was like, well, I probably inherited that from my mother. But at the same time, like, I don't know, because, like, I think actually, like, she's probably more so than I am. I have the tendency to say to myself, like, what did you do? Like, what did you, like, sort of get done? It's sort of like you want to do so much, but, like, you're sort of sitting here talking to your beautiful face on the camera. So it's one of those things. I mean, I think it's interesting because we do talk about sort of like like my face and like how I feel about it. And I'll be honest with you, like, it did. There's a long time where I look at my face, like, having been used to looking at it in the mirror, and it's sort of like it looks pretty cool. By the way, can we do a sort of counter? Is that the first time I've used sort of? I don't know, but but I've never really had a problem with my face. But I realize that my mouth is a little crooked, my smile is whatever, right? It's sort of like there we go. Um, I feel as though my face is probably somewhat cluttered. Can you have a cluttered face? I did want to talk about clutter today, obviously, but that's a transition. It's called like a it's called something. The point is that, like, you're sort of talking about an idea, you sort of tie it together with something, with the general concept, and then you sort of branch out into that general thing, right? So one of the things I did today was I cleaned out my refrigerator and some of my closets, actually. So it was very interesting because I don't think of myself as a cluttered person. The one thing about my mom is very anti-clutter, right? So she likes to, like, sort of keep everything clean, do stuff, and yet not have clutter. And so it's like those are the three things. I do probably one of those things, but those one of those things is like it's a more of a goal focus than sort of a do. So it's interesting. But what was I going to say? So I don't think of myself as a cluttered person, right? The way I approach this stuff is usually like, well, cluttered is, it's a somewhat in other words, it's somewhat of a sort of descriptive term, right? So we say clutter. I mean, when you think of cluttered, it's sort of like it when you see it, right? Like, I know a cluttered like there's certainly an image of being cluttered, but I don't like. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think I'm somewhat cluttered, but I don't know if I'm like totally cluttered, right? I feel like I look at things that are sort of like cluttered, like the term cluttered, like like you look at like things like clutter and like temperature and you know like all these things. They're sort of like they are sort of right, but they kind of have a a distribution, right? There's really like uncluttered and then there's really cluttered, and our clutter is the same. Well, you can say, well, there's sort of the general category of cluttering versus the, well, no, there's not a sort of general clutter. I mean, in other words, like, yeah, you see a person's garage. My experience with garages is that they tend to clutter themselves. Am I crazy? I don't know. It's interesting, but I've never actually seen even most garages, most enclosed garages, right? I really have never seen an uncluttered garage, and I suppose the question of the day, if I haven't explicitly asked the question of the day, my question of the day would be: Have you guys ever seen an uncluttered enclosed garage? So there's also like maybe like carports, right, where it's sort of like a like an opening. But I've never actually seen an uncluttered garage. I feel like they have the tendency to clutter themselves. And so what would we say about that, right? We would say that, garages have minds of their own, I suppose, right? Never underestimate the mind of a garage. You can underestimate the minds of others, but don't underestimate the minds of garages, right? The tendency, the inertia to sort of get cluttered. Anyway, I actually am in a good mood, believe it or not. Believe it or not. But yeah, so what else do I have to say? Yeah, clutter is an interesting thing. Like I said, I feel somewhat proud of myself for uncluttering my refrigerator. At the same time, it's sort of like, did that really count as something, right? Like, I don't know, right? I tend to, like I said, like I tend to sort of have specific goals that I've got to meet them. But if I sort of do something that's not what I'm specifically in tune to do, or in other words, what I'm specifically telling myself to do for a certain day, and I sort of don't, even though it's a plus, it's not a sort of like a real plus, right? That's interesting. And the question would be, of course, like how other people sort of react to that or not, right? I suppose like other people's desks are really cluttered, right? And some people like have clean desks. I would say though that most people's desks are like, there are more cluttered desks in the world than there are uncluttered desks. That's a claim that I'm going to state, right? Like I think like I said, like these spaces, they tend to be very cluttered. So if we look at my own, because for the last 2 minutes I don't really have anything to say. So actually I don't know if I can really show you. I have clear counters. My counters have no clutter, but otherwise, there is a tendency to get cluttered. And you ask, you sort of wonder, sort of, what is it about cluttering that makes things get cluttered, right? And we sort of say, well, we don't care what the cause is, we just are describing the thing, right? And so yeah, so I'm actually interested somewhat in causes, right? It's like, oh, what causes what? Anyway, I suppose that would be a sort of deductive thinking. I don't know. The point is that it's a good day. I am trying to think of what else. We're gonna barely get to 10 minutes today. What else do I have to say? Other than that, yeah, not much. It's one thing which I think separates me from a lot of other people is that I nothing to be the talker, and I don't know if these videos are really are helping me not become more of a talker. I don't know. I feel like I should probably talk about things other than clutter, but it is interesting. Anyway, hopefully everybody's having an awesome weekend. Like I said, my weekend's not too bad at all. And yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Whether I can sort of come up with other things to talk about. Right now, I'm thinking about, I guess, what else can I unclutter? Anyway, all right. So that's about it. In 5, 4, 3, 2, one. Happy end of the video.